Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Prophesy Book 2, The Bringer of Wrath, by A.E. Villa. Narrated by Duran. Chapter 1. Alek. Alek came to slowly as sunlight broke through the early morning gloom. His blackout drapes were parted just enough for him to see the slivers of light blue within the lingering darkness. Normally this was his favorite time of the day, but this morning was like none other. For the first time in his 31 years he hadn't woken alone. Sighing, Alex turned his nose into his mate's long black hair and inhaled the clean scent that he hoped remained there at all times. He'd only met his mate, Belleron, a few days ago, so he wasn't exactly sure. He kept silent, sensing the powerful vampire in his arms rousing from a light slumber. It was amazing how much he could already feel of their partial bond. They hadn't made love yet, but he'd allowed Belle to feed from him for the first time last night, the memory causing a satisfying tremor to run down his spine. His mate's bite was unlike any pleasure he could have imagined. So wonderful that he thought he might not deserve it, as if the Blessed Mother had somehow, for the first time in her infinite existence, made a mistake. Aleksei Volkov was damaged goods, a man with a torn soul and a rogue wolf. And for some reason he'd been granted a true vampire mate. And not just any vampire. The second most powerful in the world, Lord High to the King, and his right hand, and leader and commander of his army. Alek closed his eyes and thought of how Belle had come to him so bravely last night, even though Wolf had ruined their first meeting. Alex's heart sped up when he thought of his other half. To say the two of them did not always get along was the understatement of his existence. He allowed Wolf out to do his job as first beta to the Alpha Zenith, to keep order in the many packs they governed, but nothing more. He couldn't be trusted for anything else. Not for fun, and damn sure not for pleasure. Wolf could lose his temper, and there wouldn't be a damn thing Alek could do about it. That much was evident when Wolf had first laid eyes on Belle. He'd emerged and caused trouble without warning, while Alek had become a livid, defenseless bystander. "I don't remember the last time I was up at dawn," Belle said, pulling Alek from his private thoughts. "Our bodies are programmed to hibernate during the day, for protection, not because we need the rest." Alek bathed in Belle's tone. His mate's voice was as silken as his skin. He could listen to it all day. "You don't sound alarmed to see the sun coming up. Should I close the drapes all the way?" Alek asked, tightening his arm over Belle's chest. He was anxious to feel all of the vampire's body, but he was also trying to be a gentleman. "No, Oh, gods. Chadwick told me about this. Now that he lives off the pure blood of a shifter, he's able to walk in the daylight and not burn, so that he can always be with his beloved night and day." Belle's deep breaths could be heard in the dim room. "I've been the Vampire King's best friend for over 70 years, and never in our wildest dreams did we envision our beloveds would be shifters. This is the first pairing of its kind in so many generations that I can't help but wonder, why now?" "I wonder too." Alek stared at Belle's inky black mane, then took the long streak of stark white hair and moved it over his shoulder, trying hard to focus on his mate's words, and not his appearance. They'd only slept a few hours early this morning, having conversed all night. There was so much he wanted to know, so much he wanted to reveal. "Your brother and Wick look inseparable, and seem to have it all figured out in a very short amount of time." Alek swallowed thickly. Man, he hoped Belle couldn't sense his nervousness. He never thought he'd be in this predicament, responsible for a mate. The real beast was riding him closer than ever, and this had to be the reason why. "Maybe not all of it. My brother had a hard time in the beginning, and Wick had to test his level of patience like never before to get him to understand." "It's a good thing vampires are patient." Alek couldn't see Bell's face, but he could hear his smile. Oh, I hope so beautiful. Alek had to clear the huskiness from his voice. Are you an understanding person, Belleron? Patient? In a few months I will have walked this earth for an entire century. I've acquired many skills over that time. Patience is one of my strongest. Bell turned and faced him, his movements causing a waft of his amazing scent to wash over him in his bed. Everything about Belleron overwhelmed him. Alek inhaled sharply as his gaze roamed over Bell's handsome face. He wanted him right then, and an urge like none other came over Alek to claim Bell completely. Fight! Alek jerked at the dark voice in his head. His canines itched until they started to burn as he forced them back in. Shit. No. He slammed his eyes shut and willed the animal in him back down deep where he belonged. Alek choked on his breath as a powerful force twisted inside of him. God damn it. I need more time with him first. You'll only scare him off. Aleksei, Bell said calmly. He always sounded so damn composed, and Alek wondered if that was another one of the skills he'd mastered over time. Look at me. His mate was speaking to him, but he couldn't open his eyes. Not yet. Because he knew if he did, they'd no longer be the pale blue they normally were. He couldn't believe this was happening to him now. His life had fallen into a comfortable, uneventful routine that he'd become accustomed to. It was the one thing he could still control. But this was too much. He could already feel his mind at war with the wolf. He wanted Alek to sink his dick and his teeth into Bell with no fucking prelude or grace. Just claim him, like Wolf had already tried to do once. But Alek wanted to court his new mate first. Earn his trust and his heart. Then maybe Bell would give them a chance. He'd have time to understand their unique triad. Alek had strong feelings for Bell already. He didn't know how to tell him he'd screwed up and sealed the vampire's fate to an unworthy shifter. A man separate from his animal. No. Alek's voice was more growly than he meant it to be. I don't know what this is I'm feeling, Aleksei, and I don't think it has anything to do with the dawn. Something else is different inside me. I've never felt this way before, so I assume it's coming from you. Bell inched closer until they were chest to chest and laid a cool palm on Alek's cheek. The peace that cloaked his mind was instantaneous and so needed. He leaned deeper into Bell's touch, seeking the relief he appeared able to provide. Alek shuddered, clutching his mate's wrist, holding their connection as he felt the monster within him retreat with a final, frightening warning. Mate him soon, or I will return. It's time. What does that mean? Alek asked frantically. But he was gone. When Alek finally opened his eyes, Bell was staring at him with a mixture of confusion and caution. Shit. Alek knew he had some explaining to do. He just hoped there was enough time. The first beam of warm sunlight hit the edge of the mattress where they still lay close to each other. Bell eyed the light carefully, then eased his long frame off the bed. As he moved around the room, he was wary of letting the rays touch him, regardless of Alek telling him that he'd be safe. But Bell didn't trust Alek yet, and rightfully so. Chapter 2. Bell. Belleron Liatos was a vampire who liked to think he'd seen it all in his time. But as he stared into the pale blue eyes of Aleksei Volkov, he realized he'd never seen anyone sexier or more terrified in all his life. He'd long ago given up on meeting his fated lover, especially after he'd become Lord High of the King's Court. When they were young, he and Wick used to share fantasies of love and night dreams of kisses on the mouth. But he always knew they'd be nothing more than just that. Just dreams. There were 200-year-old vampires on the council who'd never encountered their cherished. It was extremely rare, and vampires weren't known for pining. They didn't crave comfort like shifters did. Bell would have been just fine continuing his existence without being bonded to another, without caring for someone else's well-being, their safety, and hurting for them. He was oblivious to these sentiments, the ones he assumed he was experiencing at the moment. When he'd come to the United States at the king's beckoning, he thought he was coming to help his friend ready his administration for any potential uprisings against his rare mating with the Alpha Zenith, and to be a diplomat for their species. Bell hadn't expected to become a part of the issue. Regular shifter and vampire matings would not be widely accepted. Bell had known Chadwick Bentley for over 70 years, since before he'd become king. His best friend had confided enough details of his own mating to the AZ for Bell to understand what was happening with him and Alek. He'd been made aware of the restriction to only feed from his beloved, that their wolves could be quite possessive, especially an alpha wolf. All of the descendants of the Volkov bloodline were of pure Siberian heritage, and direct descendants of the first Dawn wolf. Justice and his brothers were well known around the world, known for their extraordinary gifts. However, something felt off. Alek stood and closed the drapes, blocking out the sunlight. "I don't think you'd be up this early if you couldn't tolerate it." "You're probably right. It's still hard to just willingly step out into the sun." "I can imagine. I guess that's equivalent to you guys committing suicide," Alek said. Deep lines scored his forehead and his left eyelid twitched as if he was distracted. Bell licked his lips and swallowed at the heat building in his throat. His beloved was muscular and strong and full of nourishment. He couldn't turn away from the sight the large alpha made as he moved around his bedroom. Alek stood with his back to him and threw on a worn Colorado Rockies t-shirt. When Alek turned to face him, Bell let his gaze roam down Alek's 6'2" frame to the bulge that was more than visible through the thin sweats he'd worn to bed. Bell had felt it pressed against his hip while he'd dozed, and he'd been torn between reaching for his desire and playing hard to get. After their fumbled introduction, they'd agreed, in no uncertain terms last night, to slow things down and get to know each other. Alek started hesitantly. Bell studied him. "I have a little cottage on Mount Osceola, higher in the mountains. Only my siblings know about it. I was hoping I could take you there. Justice gave me a couple days off so we could, Mate," Bell smirked. "I was going to say talk," Alek laughed uncomfortably. Bell could practically hear Alek's elevated heart rate. His pulse thrummed and his breaths were labored, but it wasn't from lust. It was from something more urgent. "I really think we need the time alone, don't you?" Alek rasped. "Yes. However, a secluded weekend may not be feasible right now. It's nice your Alpha gave you the weekend off, but my king didn't grant me such luxuries. I have an important job to do here." Bell finger-combed his long hair the best he could and twisted it into a messy bun at the nape of his neck. He tucked his black dress shirt into his tailored slacks and secured his belt. His clothes were a bit wrinkled, which was unlike him. He was always mindful of his appearance. He needed to get himself together, but he couldn't leave. Not with a foreign ache in his chest. The shattered look on Alek's face was making everything outside of the room seem insignificant. "I need to ask you a question first." "You can ask me anything." Alek sat at the foot of the bed and fisted his hands on his thighs. His voice was strained and he held his muscular body tightly, as if he was battling for restraint. Bell leaned on the wall and steepled his hands together in front of him. "Then, tell me who it was that bit me 3 nights ago. Because it wasn't you, Alek. Last night's bite was all you." Alek jerked his head up. He opened his mouth, then shut it before closing his eyes tightly. He murmured under his breath as if he was having a conversation with someone else. He shook his head. "I don't know what—" "I think you do." Bell's footsteps were slow and careful. He didn't know why, but his instincts were telling him to tread lightly. He stopped just in front of Alec's knees and slowly brought his hand up in an effort to satisfy his need to touch him. He palmed his chin. "Look at me." Alek groaned, but he let Bell tilt his head upwards. He still didn't open his eyes, and Bell couldn't help wondering what dread lurked behind those sealed eyelids. "Just go away with me, please, Belleron." Bell frowned again. He'd been 3/4 erect ever since he'd gotten his first taste of Alek's rare blood last night, but he'd been able to control himself. Alek's craving, his body's reactions, were far surpassing mate lust. "No, I have to work first. Then we talk next." Bell stood taller. Alek shot to his feet. Though they were almost the same height, the Alpha seemed to tower over him, growling in his face. "There is no time." Heat rushed into the room, followed by a surge of energy that knocked Bell off his feet. Wide-eyed, he stumbled backwards and hurried to recover, pulling himself up against the wall. "Oh, God." Alek opened his eyes after a couple of seconds, looking shocked. "Oh, no. Bell, are you all right? I'm sorry. He didn't mean... I didn't mean to..." Alek reached out to him, but Bell flinched away from his grasp, and there were no words to describe Alek's devastated expression when he did. Wick hadn't told him there were shifters like this. Defective ones. Bell didn't speak again. Obviously, what he'd said before hadn't been the right words, so he chose to stay silent. He wasn't sure he wanted to feel Alek's special gift again, if that was it. He'd always heard that shifters were incapable of harming their true mates. He thought wolves guarded and protected their loved ones with their lives. But that didn't seem to be the case for him. "If you let me explain," Alek started. "Do you believe in prophecies?" Okay, he needed space. He had a beloved who wasn't in his right mind, and Wick hadn't warned him. Now he was feeling betrayed and set up. Bell was a powerful vampire, but he wasn't delusional enough to think he could best the second oldest brother to the Alpha Zenith. Bell started to inch farther out of the room, making his way down the hall. "Please don't go," Alek followed, his voice a deep whisper. "I won't hurt you. Don't follow me." Bell stopped at the entrance to the main living area when he saw the wide open space that was flooded with natural lighting. Bloody hell. Rays of sunlight striped across the hardwood floor like a dangerous maze he'd have to navigate if he wanted to get free. He felt trapped as Alek approached him from behind. "You don't trust me, and I understand. You don't even know me. But, Bell, please, don't be scared. And don't leave." Alek's voice was so full of hurt, Bell was conflicted about what to do. The ache in his sternum was telling him to fall into Alek's arms and make all his sadness go away. But his rational mind was telling him to run. Run while he still could. They hadn't fucked yet. He might tolerate feeding from another's blood in time. A very long time. But once they consummated, there'd truly be no going back. "I want to tell you the truth. I do," Alek continued. "But you have to promise not to leave." Hell no. Bell was just about to step into the light and risk it on his own when Alek blurted out, "You're right. It wasn't me who bit you the first night we met. Technically." Bell spun around, his hand clamping onto the partially healed bite mark just above his collarbone. What the hell did his beloved mean? Then what? Who? I'm sure it sounds crazy, but sometimes Wolf will act impulsively. If he believes it's for our good, or if it has anything to do with what's been prophesied or the prophecy, he'll react. He's driven purely by his animal instincts, and most of the time I can't stop him." Alek bit his bottom lip. "Damn it, I've never had to explain this before." "You're doing a good job," Bell said without thinking. "Continue. Tell me how this is possible." Shit. Alek stared at the floor while Bell slowly moved back towards the bedroom, still keeping his distance. "I'm sure you've heard stories of my family's bloodline." Yes. Bell stood in the darkest corner of the room while Alek resumed his position on the bed. "That you have powers." "Strengths," Alek corrected. "When you say powers, it kind of implies that we have some sort of magical abilities, when we don't." "Okay," Bell reiterated. "Strengths." "Yes." Alek didn't look up. "And did I just feel yours?" Alek met his eyes. "Barely even a fraction of it." My gods. Bell had never felt that kind of energy before. "Your strength frightens you?" "He frightens all." Alek's baritone timbre was heavy with pain. "Apparently, even my mate." Bell shook his head. "He. You speak as if he's someone else, as if your animal is not a part of you." "He's not," Alek grumbled. "And he probably never will be again." Bell frowned. "Aleksei." "No, I have to accept this." Alek stood. "All of my siblings' wolves are glorified in the prophecy. Except me. I've been condemned." "Hold on. Chadwick said Taleb explained some of this to him about the foreseen gifts for the alpha mates. That's why he's able to shift into a tiger, because it's what was prophesied by one of the first shamans. And something else about mighty conquerors rising up only to be defeated by vengeance and fire." "Exactly. And it's already begun." Alek paced the small area in front of his bed. "Justice has mated with the king, and together their animals will unite our kinds. Justice's wolf is the bringer of fairness and truth. We all knew it would start with him, but it wouldn't end there. My youngest brother, Taleb, has studied under a shaman for years. He knows more about this than any of us. His wolf is the bringer of wisdom." Alek dropped his ass onto the bed, looking defeated. "His wolf speaks knowledge to everyone. Except me. Because he's afraid." Bell stood. "I'm not afraid of you, Alek. But I am hesitant. What role do we play in all this?" Alek joined him in the center of the room. Heat radiated from him as he slowly laid his hand on Bell's shoulder. The warmth was amazing to someone who was usually so cold. "I'm not sure. I never thought I'd have a mate. Heaven knows I wanted one, but I didn't think I was worthy. Or able. I know what my role is in all this, but I'm not sure if I can fulfill it. As you may have figured out by now, I've torn apart from my wolf. And, in turn, a monster was created." Bell held still as Alek touched him. It wasn't easy. He wanted to curl into him and press his mouth to his throat. Bell could feel the restrained power smothered deep down in his beloved's body. Too much power for him to keep there safely. Bell rested his palm over Alek's heart. "Maybe it's time to bring you all together again." "You don't know what you're saying," Alek whispered, caressing Bell with the gentlest touch he'd ever felt. Bell stared into troubled, pretty blue eyes. "Alek." The other night, when he'd been bitten, those eyes could have shot ice daggers. They'd been so brilliant and sharp. Wolf. Someone was missing. There was another. The feared one. Bell could feel it. "And what are you called?" Chapter 3. Bell. What in Hades was all this he was feeling for Aleksei Volkov, and so soon? Bell had no knowledge of this sort of issue in a shifter. A man and wolf divided, their souls ripped into pieces. Unheard of. Bell probably shouldn't have been making recommendations just yet. However, this was his beloved. He ached for him. He didn't want to feel this way. Didn't want to feel someone else's pain. Bell had so much work to do, a king to advise, and an entire community to speak for. But yet there he stood, paralyzed for the first time in his life, just as conflicted and torn as his cherished, not able to budge until he knew more and understood. "Come with me," Alek whispered. "Maybe I should." Bell turned his back to Alek, staring at the window and not knowing what awaited him on the other side of those heavy drapes. He tensed when he felt Alek's rough palms gliding down the sleeves of his dress shirt. "Don't fear me, mate. Please don't. I might get overly passionate about certain things, like solidifying our bond, but I won't ever harm you. I really hope you believe that, Bell," Alek begged. "I know this is a lot to take in at once, but I just need a chance to fully explain." "You asked me if I had patience, Aleksei. But do you?" Bell challenged. Alek touched his waist, slowly embracing him as if giving him a chance to refuse the contact. "Oh, I do." Alek paused. "Just not all of me does." Bell was overcome by Alek's scent as he pressed closer into his back. Warm breaths caressed his cheek while heavy hands palmed his stomach. "Bonding is extremely important to me, and to Wolf right now. I know this is your way, to sense your mate, then to bite, then consummate." Bell ducked his head when Alek's forehead met the base of his skull. He tried to keep his voice soothing. "But you seem to be neglecting that vampires have a way as well. I need a moment to sort some things out in my head, Alek. Speak to Wick about the time you want." Bell laughed humorlessly. "But first I have to get outside." "It's okay," Alek assured him. "I'll go with you." Did he want Alek to go out there with him? Fuck yes. He was anxious, and he didn't want to show that kind of weakness, but he wasn't sure he could step into the light for the first time on his own. He should feel safe with a large shifter at his back, and to some degree he did, but Alek had already shown he could be unpredictable. "Nothing will happen to you, Bell. Mating with a shifter should make you compatible with me." Should doesn't sound very reassuring. Doesn't sound like a fact. I'm not the king. The mother may not have given me the same blessing for being fated to one of her children. I could explode as soon as I opened the door. Bell gulped at the thought. "I didn't mean to make it sound that way. I'm sure you'll be fine." "I need to hear more." Bell struggled to believe the impossible. Alek's voice dropped a few octaves. "You were about to step into the light in the living room a few minutes ago. If you were in any danger, Wolf would have reacted. Way before I even could. He knows trouble is coming before I do. And he'll..." Alek trailed off before finishing with, "He'll save you. Always." Alek made it sound as if Bell had several mates who would all act for him. Gods, how do I do this? Bell's pulse raced, and he wondered if this was what it felt like when humans had panic attacks. He was so sure he was having those symptoms. The labored breaths, dizziness, the heat in his throat, and the tingling in his gums to bite into tender, supple flesh. Okay, maybe humans don't experience all those symptoms. Perhaps Bell was just craving another taste, with Alek holding him and the sound of his blood rushing in Bell's ears. As soon as he finished that thought, the pleasant warmth in his throat ignited into an all-out inferno. Alek clutched him tighter, and Bell leaned into the embrace without thought. He swore he felt each erratic beat of Alek's heart and each tensing of muscle when Alek's lips touched just beneath his ear. A wave of lust washed over Bell, causing his cock to throb in his designer slacks. Alek's body was hard everywhere, especially the thick bulge digging in.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?